In the next few minutes, I want to share with you about entertaining the thought that it was not your fault. I remember seeing the movie Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Robin Williams. The premise of the movie was that Will, played by Matt Damon, was a janitor at MIT. One of his professors found him to be a genius while watching him solve problems on the chalkboard that the professor couldn't solve. Will got arrested and found himself in jail. His professor bailed him out with the promise that he would attend classes and see a psychiatrist. Will did not want to go to a shrink, his words, which he let the doc know on his first visit. However, he did want to stay out of jail. So whether he thought the psychiatrist was a positive in his life or not, he continued the sessions. The backstory about Will is that he was horribly abused as a child and had never spoken about it to anyone. He grew up on the wrong side of Boston and was convinced he was no good. He went to this psychiatrist for months and played a bad boy role and used his nothing touches me persona until one session when the doc said just the right thing that triggered Will, and he started talking about his abuse. It took a few sessions of Will insisting the abuse was all his fault until the psychiatrist got in his face, pinned his back up against the wall, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, "It was not your fault. It was not your fault." Will broke down and cried like a baby. I felt as though the psychiatrist was speaking directly to me. I always believed that every bad thing was my fault. The character wasn't the only one who cried like a baby. So did I. I was in a movie theater, surrounded by people, and I could not stop sobbing. I shared that part of the movie with you because if you take away nothing from our time together except these words, please remember, it was not your fault. I hope those words reverberate in your head and your heart the next time you try to take the blame and feel the shame for something you never caused, actions you never wanted to happen, and abuse you could not stop. I want you to hear that it doesn't matter what they did, how many times they did it, or what they may have made you do. It was not your fault. I had been so indoctrinated with the belief that it was all my fault, I had no clue I could change that belief. I gave some serious thought as to how I finally believed my therapist when she had told me repeatedly it was not my fault. One thing that helped me believe it was when I looked at little children in the store or at other gatherings and thought, if I knew they were being abused, could I blame them? If a bigger person was hurting them, could I stand by and do nothing? Or if I thought anyone was making that little child cause any harm to another, what would I do about that? Hell, I've left many stores because I heard a child crying. I didn't think there was any abuse happening to that child, probably just someone being told no. But during some of my abuse, I heard babies crying too many times, and I cried silently for so many years without knowing how to soothe myself that it still hurts me to hear children cry. I was adopted when I was around 5 years old, so I don't have any pictures of myself prior to that age when my abuse started. But I do have some when I was around 5 or 6. I dug out those photos, put a couple of them in frames where I saw them every day, and asked myself, how could any abuse she suffered have been her fault? I couldn't continue to blame her for any of that terribleness. It could never have been her fault. I also look at those pictures and think, how could she have physically run away and told anyone what was happening? How could I continue to blame myself for anything that happened? I was just a baby. If you still think it was all your fault, maybe you could try the experiment and look at your reaction. I believe my healing process was stunted until I knew it was not my fault. How could I heal from abuse that I brought on about myself? How could I even think I was worthy of that healing? Why would anyone else want to hear about it? And never mind trying to find someone who would actually listen and perhaps be able to help me. What right did I have, being broken and damaged, to think I could ever be someone? Of course, that line of thinking never let me consider that I am someone. I was a creative, intelligent little person who found a way to survive the abuse she suffered. Today, I am a creative, intelligent, little bit bigger person who is using those same attributes to make my world as I want it to be, knowing it was not my fault.